Obviously now having done CrossFit training specifically for over 20 years, you start to see a lot of the same mistakes. And then obviously just reflecting on my own career and what I could have done better. Here we go. All right, I want to talk to you guys about the 5 biggest mistakes CrossFitters / myself have made over the years when coming to competing at CrossFit and just doing CrossFit or your training really. Number 1, and I think it's getting better, but you still see it a lot of times with the competitors is volume, right? Volume being too much. Because in a sport like CrossFit, there are so many different modalities that you have to be good at. You can always constantly be working on some, and you're always constantly feeling like maybe you're behind and you need to do more. Where it's not always that's technically not always the case, especially for my competition years, the volume. Rich was doing the volume, I was doing the volume, that all of these other athletes saw other people doing, you're like, oh, I'm getting behind, and so I need to be doing more. And man, some people are just capable of handling more volume. And there's times where you want to push volume, but there's definitely times where you want to rest. I remember literally leaving the games, taking 1 day off, and then going back into the training and immediately start hammering again in high volume. And I know that if I would have allowed my body to recover a little bit better, a little bit longer, I would have been better for it at the time. So don't get consumed with constantly high volume. It doesn't always have to be high volume. High volume can be good in certain instances, but it does not have to be this crazy amount 7 days a week. Leading up to 2016, that was the year prior did not make it. And I was like, I will never allow myself to feel that way again. And so I'm going to hammer this training. And to be honest, leading into the 2016 games, I had done so much and taken so many little rest days. I felt amazing going into regionals, but in between regionals and games is where I really started to feel like bogged down, tired, moody, not in a good mood, overly stressed. And I knew that I should have been taking more rest days, but I had this in my head that I had to train pretty much every single day all out. And so, don't get wrapped around the volume. Sometimes more can be less, or less can be more. There we go. All right, the second thing is comparison. Social media has allowed this to be a little bit more prevalent, I think, because everyone's putting up what they're doing, how great they're doing, all their big lifts, all their big accomplishments. You don't see the bad days. You don't see the shitty days of training, right? All you see is their best. And so what we can struggle with, I remember actually my last couple of years, I actually started to delete any athletes that I was competing against because I didn't want to see it and I didn't want to have to compare myself to what they were doing. Because in the end, the things that I was good at and the things that they were good at might not have been the same. And if I'm looking at what they were snatching or doing 1 rep maxes of, I knew that was going to put me into a bad mood and not allow me to feel good about what I was doing in my training. So staying off social media in those times prior to competitions, or just trying not to compare yourself, to these athletes and just realizing you're on a progression, you're on a track, and you'll get to where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, and not having to compare yourself to other athletes and what they're doing. That is a huge thing, and I think that will help people mentally drastically. And number 3. And this one it's not always the case, but I caught myself every once in a while doing it. And I was really good at training the things that I'm bad at. I did not shy away from them. Even when I was programming for myself, I would not shy away from the things that I was bad at. I would tend to overdo them, and I would start to lose my focus on the things that I was good at, which can tend to sometimes lead you not being as good as you think you are at those. So not training the things that you're good at, all of a sudden you're no longer as good as you thought you were at those movements. And now all of a sudden, so you're trying to work on the things that you're bad at and get better at, and all of a sudden now the things that you're good at, you're not training as much, and your actual capabilities there start to go down. Watch doing that, right? Make sure that you still train the things that you're good at and make sure that you're really good at those, because when you need to score points in a competition, you make sure you got to get those points. And so by hammering the stuff that you're good at and bad at, that'll alleviate that to where you don't leave points on the board when you should have made them. A thing that I really struggled with, and it has a lot to do with time, and I'm really bad with time management, I would say. So I didn't do a lot of food prep, but nutrition, hydration, and sleep. Those three things can help you so drastically in your training that it's hard to describe. I think sleep is the number one thing that people forget about or push to the side, and it is the number one recovery tool that we have. Getting 8 hours of sleep a night is so drastically important to our recovery, it's insane. And so this is actually a crazy fact that a lot of people I don't think knew, and when I heard it for the first time, it kind of blew my mind. You would die from sleep deprivation before you would die from starvation. So the Guinness Book of World Records actually won't even allow you to attempt to try to stay awake the longest anymore. That's how important sleep is to us as human beings. And so not getting enough sleep was something that I struggled with. My sleep was so poor because I would drink coffee, at like 4 or 5 p.m. to do my last workout. My nutrition could have been a lot better. I thought that I was training so hard that I could out-train it. And to be honest, looking back on it, I know that if I would have taken out a lot of the sugar and the crap and the processed food that I was eating because I thought I was okay because I was training so hard, I would have been so much better for it. And staying on top of my hydration. I felt like I was always dehydrated and I wasn't drinking enough water and putting enough electrolytes into my water. So nutrition, hydration, and sleep. Those three things are drastic for anybody that's trying to compete. If you're not thinking about those three things, I don't care how hard you're training, at some point that stuff's gonna fall off anyways. So get your sleep. I remember the first time I actually did start to get 8 hours of sleep, I remember calling my coach at the time and being like, man, you got to try this stuff. I'm feeling so good. I'm getting so strong. I'm feeling so fit. He's like, what is it? I'm like, it's sleep. I'm getting 8 hours of sleep a night. It's crazy. And that was awesome. So don't skimp on that. And the last one, I think that some CrossFitters can get their heads wrapped around is like thinking there's a magic pill to get you to the CrossFit Games or to the Rogue Invitational or to any of the competitions. There is no magic pill. It is putting in the work. It is being disciplined. It is being dedicated to your craft and removing things that are what I would call distractions. Some people like to term it as I am sacrificing so that I can do this stuff. I hate the term sacrifice because all the things that I did leading up to competing, what I was doing, my amount of time I was training, I wasn't sacrificing anything because that's where I wanted to be. I wanted to be getting better and growing as an athlete and becoming stronger and faster and fitter so that I could go win the CrossFit Games, which was my ultimate goal. Some people like to say, oh, I have to sacrifice so much. I can't hang out with friends. I can't go to the bar. I can't do this or that. And it's like, I didn't look at it as a sacrifice. I looked at it as like, this is what I need to be doing so that I can get to my goal. And so realizing that there is no magic pill, you have to be dedicated. You have to work hard. You have to be disciplined to go in even sometimes when you're not feeling like it, or there's other things that are going on that you have to say no to. Those are my 5 biggest things that I think CrossFitters can get wrong. And obviously I'm talking about myself mainly. These are my 5 biggest things that I kind of got wrong as I was competing that I wish I could go back and talk to myself prior to and having these conversations. But it is what it is, and I'm very happy with how it played out. But it's always easy to look back and make it and see what you could have adjusted to make things better. And so if there were 5 things that I could adjust, these would be them. So hope you guys like that. Pretty simple. Don't worry about your volume always. Everyone wants to do more. You don't have to always do that. Comparison is the thief of joy. Not training things that you're good at. Nutrition, hydration, and sleep. Don't sleep on those. And no magic pill, right? So I think if we get rid of those things, we're going to be good for it. So hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe to the thing. And as always, don't forget to pay the man.